everybody. Welcome back. Today we are here for our white limited set review for Phyrexia All Will Be One. Yanks is on the call with us. Welcome back, Yanks.
Thank you. Good to be back for another set.
Yeah, I am excited. I've been feeling a little underwhelmed with the last few sets, but this one is looking promising.
Yeah, if it wasn't for poison counters, I'd agree, but otherwise it looks good.
I don't know. I've always kind of enjoyed killing people with poison counters in limited, so I'm okay with it. But we're going to start with white. What were we going to say?
So I actually don't mind poison counters that much. I just don't like the effect.
Fair. All right. Well, first card in white, guys. Against all odds, we have a 4-mana sorcery that says choose one or both. Exile an target artifact or creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. Or return target artifact or creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. At sorcery speed for 4 mana, this is awfully expensive for a flicker, but you do get both, which is kind of neat. What are you thinking rating-wise?
Yeah, you gotta have a lot of ETB effects to make that first part particularly valuable, unless we see there's maybe a bunch of enchantment removal.
Which there kind of has been, but...
Yeah. The fact that it's at sorcery speed means you can't use it to protect a creature from removal. So yeah, this feels kind of underwhelming, but there are going to be decks with enough of both that this will be.
Yeah, you really have to have some really strong ETBs, especially at the 3 CMC or lower, in order for this to be something I'm interested in playing. I think this is going to be a 2 for me.
I think so too. I think it's a tough card to get as the first one out of the gate without seeing everything that it would interact with. But yeah, on its face, I like it too.
So I mentioned it a little bit in this beginning of the set review, but because this is the first color of the entire review, we probably won't go over this every single time. But just so you guys do know, we are doing a 1 to a 5, 5 being the biggest bombs in the set that you can't basically win if they resolve them. So there's usually like maybe 3 tops in any given set, usually 3 sort of like max game-winning bombs. And then 1 is unplayable. 2 is like the borderline cards that you're putting in your deck that you're not necessarily happy to put in your deck. Like sort of like the 3-mana 2/3s with like next to no ability, sort of that sort of filler range. And then 3s and 4s become, your premium playables and your premium removal at 4 and upwards from there. All right, guys. Next card here, the Annex Century. We have a 3-mana 1/4 Phyrexian cleric with Toxic 1. When it enters the battlefield, exile target artifact or creature an opponent controls with mana value 3 or less until this leaves the battlefield. So, I mean, it's kind of like a little, we saw this in Azorius colors before, but it wasn't sort of limited based on the mana value, but this has Toxic. It's also got a bigger booty. I think this is fine.
Yeah, it's like a conditional Banisher Priest with a little bit of upside in Toxic. I mean, even if Toxic 1 doesn't do a ton for you, it's just upside. There's no downside to having it.
Yeah, I mean, we usually see this as like a 1/4 for 3 with lifelink or something, and I think Toxic is going to be, very similar to this, especially because we have like the black-white archetype that's really interested in doing the corrupted thing, so you don't need to get a ton of points of damage Toxic poison counters in. But you need to get some, and so kind of just putting it onto random creatures makes it pretty cool. Yeah, this is a fine playable. I'm thinking it's a 3 for me.
Yeah, I think it's a 3 anytime you get sort of like a removal spell, even if it's a bad removal spell stapled onto a reasonable body.
Yeah.
Plus, it's an artifact for the blue-white deck. There's a few things.
Yeah, artifact for blue-white, corrupt Toxic for white-red, a little bit of an O-ring. It kind of does everything. It also, fills that curve really nicely at 3 where you're removing their blocker for the thing that can help prevent you from getting in with your toxic creatures in the first place. I think that's pretty neat.
Agreed.
All right. Apostle of Invasion. We have our first 6-drop. It's a 4/4 Phyrexian Angel with flying and corrupted, like we just saw the last toxic creature can help with. And it says, as long as an opponent has 3 or more poison counters, Apostle of Invasion has double strike. This looks pretty busted and pretty scary for an uncommon.
Yeah, this card is okay if you basically have no poison, but it's really good if you can get triggers or corrupted, the poison counters to make corrupted active.
Yeah, so that means there are going to be some color pairs where this is very premium. So that would be like Selesnya, and the other major poison counter was Orzhov, right?
Orzhov, yeah.
So those are going to be the two color pairings where we're really looking for this to get a nice boost. I don't think it's quite enough for us to give it a split rating because I'm going to assume white has enough to trigger its own sort of corrupted. Obviously not as strong as premium color pairings, but I think that corrupted is not going to be super out of reach for any white deck. So I'm just going to say that it's got some upside there. Probably looking at a... Oof, this one's a little hard.
I think it's to me, I have it as a 3 because it is still expensive. And then, yeah, it's going to play better than that in your white-black decks and maybe some of your Selesnya decks. But it's going to be worse than that in probably. And,
okay.
Probably right at there in Azorius, just because Azorius flyers are always relevant.
So I was bouncing back and forth between a 2-5 and a 3. I think 3 is getting towards the high side unless you have substantial synergy. I think the average deck is going to play 2, 5, or 3 depending on, just mediocre poison synergy. But yeah, I think that's about right wheelhouse-wise. All right, moving on to the Basilica Shepherd. The art in these cards is insane. 5 mana for another Phyrexian angel with flying. It says whenever the shepherd enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1 colorless Phyrexian Might artifact creature tokens with Toxic 1. This creature can't block. Okay, so an angel that's creating little toxic mites. Ugh, everything about this set just kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies, man.
Yeah, you can kind of almost see the mites like on her cape. If you look at the art, it's pretty gross. But here you're looking at 5 mana for 5/5 worth of power and toughness, 2 bodies that come with toxic, 3 of the power has flying. It's a pretty good package.
Yeah, definitely love it being spread out across the bodies. The toxic helps with all of your corrupted cards. I mean, this card is kind of doing everything you want to do, and we've certainly seen 5 mana 3/3 flyers that did much less.
Yeah, agreed.
Rating wise, I'm liking this at like a 3.
Yeah, it makes 2 artifacts for the blue-white deck as well. So, this is doing all.
Yeah, fairly strong, especially for a common.
Agreed.
All right, Blade Ambassador, 2 mana for a Phyrexian Soldier. It's a 3/1. When it enters the battlefield with an oil counter on it, you can pay 1, remove an oil counter from it, and it gains indestructible until end of turn. So this is going to be super good for anything where you can add those sort of counters onto it. What was the color pairing for a lot of... It wasn't in white, right? For oil counters, it was Gruul and Simic?
Gruul and Izzet.
Okay, Gruul and Izzet is adding a lot of oil counters. So I don't see that the color pairing here matches super well. But obviously there will be some color pairings where you have one thing like Selesnya. Selesnya could have some green stuff, adding some decent counters here to this. So synergy-wise, it doesn't come with its own built-in package, but it's still a 3/1 for 2 mana, which is sort of our baseline for a 2 playable, and it can make itself indestructible at least once, giving you a pretty solid chance of getting 2 for 1 here over the long run. This is playable to me.
Yeah, this is, and I'm kicking myself because I can't remember the names of it, but this is like the 3rd one of these we've seen in recent memory that's just somewhat themed according to the set. These 2 mana 3/1s that have some way to give yourself indestructible. One of them was discard a card. One of them was pay some amount of life.
Yeah, there was the vampire that paid 4 life. But those are sort of like things that you can control and do multiple times. This one is a little less so.
This one is, it's paying the cost is less costly because it's bringing its own resource, but you can only do it once.
Exactly, unless you're having outside synergy, which doesn't come with this color pair. Or this color specifically.
Yeah, white isn't even really particularly in any of the proliferate pairs either.
Yeah, true.
That being said, so those creatures were always the most annoying things to block and deal with. Unless you manage to, until you could get to X4s. Because you only get to do this once, it's far less irritating to deal with on the other side of the table. Like, I get so frustrated trying to block those other creatures.
Mm-hmm.
In this set, like you said, it doesn't come with a ton of synergy. It's probably a pretty good card in Boros with all the equipment running around.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty aggressive creature, but I'm not sure it's going to do all the other white color players.
I think it's going to be fine no matter what. I mean, it's kind of a 2-ish as is. So with the like random synergy that you could find if you happen to pair this with a color that either proliferates or creates some sort of oil counter. So we're looking at like blue, green, red. I mean, there's a lot of color pairings there, right? That's going to be doing some of those things. I'm okay to give this a 2-5. It's a little on the high side, but I think it could get there.
Yeah, I think I have it as a 2, although it'll definitely be a 2-5.
Yeah, so I feel like a 3-1 for 2 that does almost nothing, but does a little something, right? Like, comes into play, look at the top card of your opponent's library, or something like kind of That's usually a 2 for me, because you'll run some of those when you're desperate and you kind of just need 2s, and you kind of need 2 drops, and that's my 2. So, I don't know, I feel like there's gonna be, like, its ability on its own is already, like, a little bit better than that, in addition to possible synergies with proliferate and more adding oil counters. That's why I'm, like, hedging a little bit, but it's probably, like, a quarter point too high. But we don't do quarter points, so that's kind of why I gave it the 2-5, but it was kind of like a guilty 2-5 for sure.
Yeah, I've started in my head to lean toward these creatures leaning a bit lower, just because it feels like the power level of creatures is just getting better and better. So that, the baseline is almost getting higher.
Yeah, definitely, because you're right, we're seeing less 2s than we were when we started this a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, whenever we started doing these set reviews. So You're right, like, cards that were getting 2s just don't exist anymore almost. So maybe some reassessment is due. All right, Charge of the Mites. Ooh, kind of creepy. 3 mana for an instant, you can choose one. Charge of the Mites deals damage equal to the number of creatures you control to a creature or planeswalker, or you can create 2 colorless Phyrexian Mite artifacts with Toxic 1, and they cannot block. So, yeah, I like these sort of double-sided cards. 3 mana for an instant speed, 2 bodies. They have Toxic in a color pair that wants Toxic a lot, and also it's like also a removal spell in a color that can support a lot of creatures. I think this is pretty valuable.
Yeah, this card is good. My biggest criticism on it is that is not a 1/1. Those are not 1/1s. Like that, no.
My biggest criticism is, why does it have, like, human teeth? Like, I almost kind of would prefer it had, like, sharp, spiky teeth, and
Agreed.
that would be less creepy to me than those weird, like, denture-looking things. That I feel like...
It kind of looks like one of those, like, fold-out, like, little brush heads.
Yeah, definitely a little on the creepy side. Yeah, this card seems good to me. Like I said, it synergizes top to bottom. Every single one of the modes here is great synergy for everything white wants to be doing. I'm going to call this a 3.
Yeah, I think it's a 3. I think it's a 3. You probably lean towards casting the first half. I'm going to guess more often than the second, but the second is still valuable.
Absolutely.
And you will play it.
And unlike a lot of removal spells that are not like the premium removal unconditional stuff, this works good in multiples because it helps fuel itself. So it's pretty sweet.
Agreed. It is. It has some self-synergy.
All right. Complete Devotion 2 mana for an instant that says target creature you control gets +2/+2 until end of turn. If that creature was toxic, draw a card. Nice. So this like gives you a little bit more incentive to be having things like the 1/4 toxic creature that like really couldn't do its own thing. The toxic cleric that we saw in the beginning. This gives you like a nice little bonus for having these. And we've seen these types of mechanics before that like, if it's a human, it's also indestructible. If it's a cleric, it gains lifelink, whatever the case may be. And this one just seems better than that.
I think the upside on this is definitely better than those. I think we've gotten to the point in my mind that this is not playable if you don't have enough toxic targets, but it's actually actively good if you do.
Yeah, I mean, every once in a while, especially in green, not less so in white, but I usually find myself running like a one just filler pump spell as a combat trick. That happens in at least like a third of my deck, just because it's better than whatever other jank crap I ended up drafting. But definitely something we're looking for Toxic. It's going to be borderline fillable, usually cut unless you have a high quantity of them. But I'm thinking that might just be kind of common here, especially after all the mites we just saw.
Yeah, the mites definitely make a difference, especially it seems like we're going to have a lot of them in white.
Yeah, and just like random little, the angels made the little mites. This thing made mites, the last card. I think we've had at least two, probably three things that made mites, plus the Phyrexian cleric. And we're barely in C. So I'm guessing that the upside on this is going to be applicable in any deck that you're playing white cards.
Yeah, it is likely to be, but if you happen to find yourself in a white deck that has like only one or two toxic things, then I'd be looking elsewhere.
Absolutely. The average deck, I don't think that's going to be the case. So, I'm willing to give this a 2-5.
Yeah, I like it at a 2-5, even if it's just for kind of the art with the completed Ajani fighting Elspeth.
And there will be a deck, Yanks is 100% right, where you're not going to want this card, but you'll very easily know which deck that is. And then there's some decks where this is just going to be a home run. I'll play 5 of them if every creature in my deck is toxic. Heck yeah.
Agreed.
That sounds awesome. Okay. Oh, look, another white toxic creature. Yeah. We have the Crawling Chorus, a 1-mana 1/1 Phyrexian horror with toxic 1. When it dies, create a 1/1 Phyrexian might with toxic 1. This creature cannot block. So more toxic things. Heck yes. It's a 1-drop. I'm not usually excited for 1-drops unless they really put in quite an impact on the board. Because this kind of replaces itself with that, it gives you the toxic mechanic. This is probably going to be playable, but I'm also just never a huge fan of 1-drops.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of this unless, we're early into the set review. If we start seeing a lot of X1s, and I don't mean like the 1/1 mites, like actual X1 creatures, then this gets better. Also, if we see decent sack outlets.
Which is supposed to be the Rakdos mechanics. Depending if you're in the Orzhov colors, you could have some things that would synergize with sack options, which would be nice here. But I'm guessing the average deck is not going to have a ton of sack.
No, probably not. I think it's more going to be the value of this card in my mind is going to be how many X1s are there, how good is like the aggressive Boros deck that you want this as a roadblock against, or even that you just want a 1-drop to then suit up with equipment on.
I was also thinking how much corrupt you have in your deck makes this quite reasonable, right? Because you want to be getting those toxic counters in really quick. Exactly.
You can get 1 or 2 toxic in pretty quickly.
So, not a thing I'm looking to play. This is probably a 1.5 that'll see some play in the right deck that either really wants to be aggressive, really wants to be corrupting people, and really wants sack outlets.
Agreed.
All right, moving along. Duelist of Deep Faith. A 2-mana 2/2 Phyrexian Soldier with toxic 1. As long as it's your turn, this creature has first strike. Wow, this seems like a home run.
Yeah. Just
this is a common?
Bear with multiple pieces of upside as long as you're, aggressive. Even if you're not, you still got a piece of upside in toxic, although that's still really only an attacking mechanic.
First strike on your turn seems like a little bit more than just like random upside. That's solid.
Yeah, it's good, but if you're playing blue-white control, you don't care about that at all. It's just a 2/2 that blocker.
Yeah, but I just don't. At that point, I'm not calling it a bear. I think it's got at least an armored bear.
Fair. I don't know. It's got to have. Phyrexians have to if they have to deal with mites that are that big at 1/1.
I will say, look at the art. She's like shish kebabbing this cute little thing. That's an actual card. What is that card? I recognize.
It's a mirror.
It's a mirror, okay.
I don't know if it's a specific mirror, but it's a mirror.
I do recognize it. It's so cute, and she's just like, yoink.
Well, and it's like doing it with like disdain, like, you again.
Yeah, get stabbed. Okay.
You're the 6th one of your CU I've killed today.
Oh, sad. 2.5?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Now we get to talk about Elish Norn, Mother of Machines, the namesake / not namesake, but like mother of the set. I don't know. whatever.
She's
Poster
the,
girl. Poster girl.
The antagonist.
Legendary creature, 5 mana for a Phyrexian Praetor, 4/5 with vigilance, and it says
wait, 4/7.
That's what I said. I'm a little number pooped. 4/7 with vigilance, and if a permanent enters the battlefield, causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, it triggers twice. And if permanent entering the battlefields don't cause abilities to trigger for your opponents, so. Holy smokes, it's doing everything. It's giving you more triggers. It's removing their triggers. It's a huge body. It's massively outvalue, like, for its rate, right? Way above rate here.
Yeah, this card's absurd. Granted, it doesn't win the game on its own. Like, a 4/7 Vigilance isn't going to win the game on its own. But as long as you got a couple good ETBs, like, it gets nuts.
I don't know. 4/7 Vigilance for 5 mana sometimes can win games. Sometimes you're just throwing trash at each other, and that's pretty darn good. But yes, I agree. The ETBs is really insane. I think this is a lot stronger in Constructed than it is in Limited, but it's definitely going to be a crazy good bomb.
Yep, but we get the sort of really only spot in white where we do some more story time stuff.
Oh, let's do it.
So Elish Norn has one of the 5 Phyrexian Praetors. There's one for each color. Some sort of backstory on New Phyrexia in general. The plane was originally called Myradin, or actually Argentum before that, but we first it's founded as Myradin. And Karn created it out of the Mirari, which was a legendary artifact that you saw in Odyssey. And Myradin was a plane where there were a bunch of... He left it under the control of like a deputy called Memnarch, who got corrupted because one thing of Karn that a lot of people don't know is Karn's, lack of a better word, he's a machine, but lack of a better word, his soul was created by a Phyrexian Heartstone from a Phyrexian newt called Xancha. That is sort of a power stone that powers him, but that has a trace of glistening oil in it, and that drop of oil was enough to corrupt Memnarch and infect Myradin. There were 5 suns in Myradin, one for each color of mana. They're actually moons, but they were called suns. That's the green sun zenith, blue sun zenith, the twilight cycle, that's what they're named after. And each Praetor rose under one of the 5 suns, Elish Norn being the white sun. She leads the Machine Orthodoxy, which has become the dominant faction on Myradin, and her goal is to basically conquer literally the entire world. Spread Phyrexia across the multiverse. And one thing I find interesting with Elish Norn is that it is the rare magic villain that is white.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we're on Phyrexia. Everybody's the bad guy here. Doesn't matter what color you're playing. There is really no good guys. It's sort of like Capenna, right? Like, it doesn't matter what colors. We're all crime families here.
Yeah, but usually even this sort of stuff, right? Like the white, you would think like the Mirrans would just be white. They would just be the rebels. But you got a couple. Like Heliod was kind of a white villain. Original Kamigawa, Takeshi Kanda. It's just kind of interesting showing that, especially when the original Phyrexians were all artifacted black mana under Yawgmoth, that every sort of color and philosophy taken to its extreme can be villainous. And in this case, it's kind of like pure order, kind of pure fascism is what Elish Norn represents.
The last bit made a lot of sense with the Elish Norn bit, but the beginning part, you lost me a little bit. I don't really know what you were talking about.
Yeah, it's a problem. Like, I could probably either do that in like 10 seconds or like 3 hours, and trying to do it in like 2 minutes just made it more confusing.
Yeah, I think so. I think we needed the last like 30 seconds. All right. Well, let's go to the next big bomb here. Which I actually think Elish Norn's better for Constructed, but this card seems busted to me in Limited. I gave Elish Norn a 4. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Elish Norn's a 4.
Don't get me wrong, guys. That's the bomb of Constructed for sure. It's like a big 5, but this is Limited. Your deck might not have a lot of ETBs to double. Your opponents might not have ETBs to remove. Yinks is right. It's a 4/7 with Vigilance, so it's going to be synergy based. It has some upside certainly, but it's not old Elish Norn, where it like nukes your opponent's board, buffs all your weenies, and just like gets in there. I think this is weaker for limited. Agreed?
Agreed.
Great.
Certain decks, but yeah, not in all of them.
Moving on to the Eternal Wanderer. This card is freaking nuts for a rare, and I'm so salty. I don't want to lose to this. I'm tired of it. 6 mana. I'm tired of it already. For a legendary planeswalker that comes into play with 5 loyalty, the alt is only 4, and it says no more than 1 creature can attack the Eternal Wanderer each combat, so you can't even kill it. The +1 says exile up to 1 artifact or creature returned to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So you can flicker your ETBs, you can remove auras, you can do all sorts of silly things. You can also kill tokens. Target artifact, it doesn't say that you control, so you can just get rid of their tokens. You can 0 it for a 2/2 samurai with double strike for 0. For 0! No! And then for -4, which you can do right away because this comes into play with 5 loyalty, each player chooses, for each player, choose a creature and then remove all other creatures. So you keep your dragon, they get to keep their might, and you call it a day. Oy vey. This is a lot.
This card is stupid.
This is a lot.
I don't know why anyone thought this was a good idea.
Well, the funny thing is like, a lot of planeswalkers we've been seeing in the last few sets, we've been like, oh, this is kind of underwhelming. It's not going to like do a lot when it comes into play. It'll be slow incremental value. This is not that. This is a 5 for me. It's really, really good. Someone in chat is saying 6 mana is a lot. Not in limited.
And not when it doesn't matter. And not when it doesn't matter if you've fallen behind because you instantly wipe their board.
Yeah.
And
5 mana wipe.
Leave them a 1/1. Like, and you keep your best thing. Like, it's just not. It protects itself in multiple ways. It generates value in multiple ways. You're right. We've been seeing underwhelming planeswalkers, but if you're going to make a, not overwhelming, but whelming planeswalker, put it at Mythic at least.
Yeah,
keep this stuff out of rare, and please, haven't you learned, keep static abilities off of planeswalkers. They're terrible ideas. It just makes people forget what's going on and causes problems in paper.
Well, we're not here to commentate too much on the design of a card, but I will say this is past underwhelming. It is past whelming, and it is overwhelming, and I agree that should probably be at Mythic because we're going to lose to this every single draft over and over again, and that's going to get real annoying.
Yeah, it's a 5, and it's going to be absolutely miserable to play against. Absolutely.
It will be it won't be the first time. Like, we lose to planeswalkers, but it's a freaking rare. Okay. Flensing Raptor?
Yep.
Okay. Sure. We have a Phyrexian bird, 2/2 for 3 mana with flying and toxic. That's going to be scary and going to kill some people. But it's important to note, toxic 1, only 1 poison counter, not 2. Doesn't matter on its toughness, its power. And when it enters the battlefield, another target creature you control with toxic gets +1/+1 and gains flying until end of turn. So you're just bouncing it. You're putting in the toxic damage. You play your little 1/1 with toxic. You bounce it in, get in some more damage. This gets in every turn. They're gonna have to deal with this. Scary.
Yeah, flying and toxic is a pretty nasty combination, especially with the sort of leap ability. This card's great. 3 mana. I mean, wind drakes are just constantly getting outclassed nowadays.
Windrake +++++. Certainly true. Also, pretty dope looking art. Little pterodactyls with these like red wings. This is really cool. I think this card is a simple 3. It's going to be a great way for you to, even if you're not going to go coast to coast and kill them with the poison counters, you're certainly going to be able to enable all of your corrupted abilities with this card, and this will be a premium target for that. I think this is a solid 3.
Yeah, I've got it as a 3 as well.
All right, we have the Gold Wardens Helm. We have a 3 mana equipment artifact with 4 Miradin. When it ETBs, it makes a 2/2 red rebel and attaches to it. And then each equipped creature gets +0/+1 and it equips for 2. So It's 3 mana for a 2/3 vanilla where you get to carry the booty on from, place to place. I feel like this is a little underwhelming stats for me.
Yeah, it's to me this is just a kind of a 2. It's a 3 mana 2/3 with a little bit of upside, and stress the word little. But if we can find some cards that care about equipment, maybe red white does,
or some blue-white artifacts.
Blue-white artifacts. There's a little bit of synergy there, but yeah, this is pretty medium.
Yeah, I think in the introduction we looked at red, and that seemed a little bit more exciting. This one seems a little underwhelming to me because on its own, it's just base stats borderline playable. So, that one booty that you have to pay 2 for every time is really not something I'm interested in spending an entire card for. So, if this was +1/+1, I think that's a little bit more in the realm of reason for me, but this is not going to see play in most of my decks. So we'll give it a 2.
Yeah, but we'll see with the very next card that there are some things they care about, like being equipped.
Great. For Myradin, a 3/3 equipped creature has flying. It comes into play with a 2/2, and it automatically equips to it. And equipped creature gets +1/+0, and equips for 3. So this makes a 2/3 flyer for 4 mana. And then I can re-equip it for 3 mana, give flying plus a power. This seems way more my speed.
Well, so it's first of all, it's a 3/2 flyer.
Isn't that what I said?
Not 2/3. You said 2/3.
I'm a little dyslexic with my numbers.
It doesn't just get +1/+0. All your equipped creatures get +1/+0.
So equipped creature gets flying, and creatures you control with +1/+0 have flying. Okay, so, or get +1/+0 but not flying. Okay,
yeah.
So that makes other weaker equipments like the last one a little bit more reasonable if you have this sort of synergy going on. I can see that.
Yeah, it's not overwhelming, but if you get a couple extra, 1 or 2 extra power out of this.
I mean, this on its own, I think feels great. And then I would run this even with no more equipment.
Oh, agreed. Although it is, it's a 4 mana 3/2 flyer with a pretty expensive equip cost. Yeah, I think I'd run it on my own, but I'm not.
I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt of the expensive equip cost because the first one's free. So it's already doing the thing. And then after that, when that thing's dead, okay, now we've got the time and mana to sink into it, and that's okay.
Yeah, and I do find that you tend to lose to games to equipment that just give things flying. And
yes.
Sometimes I'm reluctant to play them because they feel like a waste of a card, but in this case, you've got a body with it. So yeah, it's not a 1-for-0.
Anytime you get a body, this is a 3/2 flyer, I said it right, for 4 mana is fine on rate, and then you get to carry over the flying and a power. That seems like a good deal to me all around. I like this card a lot, actually. Probably still in the neighborhood of probably a 3.
Yeah, I think I've got it around a 3.
Because the creature itself, I would give a 2/5, and then just getting to move it around is pretty dope.
Agreed.
All right, I'm gonna let you take this one.
Next up, we have Incisor Glider. 1 and a white for an artifact creature. It's a Phyrexian construct. It's a 1/3 with flying. It has corrupted whenever it attacks. If an opponent has 3 or more poison counters, creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn.
That says creatures.
Yes.
It's plural. Nice. That's pretty good.
Yep, and it's got a lot of teeth.
It does, and they're creepy human teeth again. Why do they keep doing that? It's way worse than the sharp stabby ones. Yeah, the flavor text says, you think it's creepy now. You should see how it eats. Ooh.
Rather messily, I would guess.
Yeah, for sure. It again is going to entirely depend on whether or not we can trigger Corrupted for this card. I feel like a 2 mana 1/3 flyer on its own is very playable, and I think Corrupted is going to be a reasonable thing that just kind of happens in any deck that contains white with some high upside with other things like Orzhov that synergize well with other toxic creatures.
Yeah, I think this looks like it could be a pretty good card in almost all of the white decks. It's good in white-black for Corrupted. It's good in green-white because you're trying to go wide with some toxic creatures, so you should be able to get Corrupted. Blue-white, it's an artifact. Red-white Red-white focused on equipment. Flying bodies are pretty good for equipment, so this kind of fits the bill in every deck.
Yeah, I feel like the corrupted mechanic is the best side of all of those synergies, but there's so many synergies all around that you're bound to hit something, and I do think corrupted is going to be a reasonable thing to attain in any white deck. Maybe not top tier synergy, you're going to hit it guaranteed, but it's going to be a thing that any deck can feasibly do. Yeah, I like this card a fair amount. What are you thinking rating wise?
I think it's probably like a 2-5. Needs help on it. Needs help, but it's good.
I think a 2-5 in most decks, and then I think if you have the corrupted deck that can pull that off on the reasonable, like I think in Orzhov it's probably going to play closer to a 3.
Interesting. I think it's probably better in Selesnya, personally.
Selesnya.
Because that's also doing the toxic stuff, but it really benefits from the go wide bonus.
Yeah, that's true. It certainly will. Yeah, I agree. So the go wide is always the white, though. So it just depends on whether or not green or black can poison better.
I think you're more likely to get the corrupted trigger in Orzhov, but the trigger will have a bigger impact in Selesnya.
Possibly true. I mean, black also has the sacrifice option, so like you're going to see some wide stuff going on in black as well.
Yep.
So I think in you're right. In Selesnya, your big creatures are going to get bigger and scarier, and in Orzhov, you'll have more creatures getting more buffs. So you'll more of like an overrun effect, or I guess overrun is tall, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. 2.5 is the rating then.
Yep.
All right, we have the Indoctrination Attendant, 4 mana for a Phyrexian cleric, 3/4. Decent rates already. It's cleric, usually relevant. Toxic 1. When it enters the battlefield, you may return another permanent to its owner's hand. If you do, create a permanent you control to its owner's hand. If you do, create a 1/1 Phyrexian Might with Toxic. Can't block. This seems good. I'm okay with this to bounce your ETBs. You don't actually have to do a thing. It's a decent rate on its own. It's got Toxic, which is relevant. 3/4s are kind of hard to block.
Yeah, I think this card's fine. Maybe just because we've seen a lot of pretty powerful ones, it feels a little underwhelming to me, but it's there's no reason for it to. It's a good rate. Toxic's a bonus. It's a May ability on the trigger, so that's only an upside.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this is good. It just for some reason feels a little underwhelming to me.
Because everything is good now. There is no chaff anymore. You remember the days where it was like 30% of the cards were just not playable in any limited format?
Yeah, where it's like, maybe I should play a 19th land instead.
Yeah, now it's just like, that just doesn't happen anymore. Like, throughout the life of a set, I find that I almost play every card at some point.
I'm going to play this 1/1 that all it does is I can tap it to change one of my lands into another land type.
You know, they've increased synergy, and they've increased, like, you know, the cards' stats, and they've really just, like, slimmed down on all the extra chaff and things that we don't like. So, yeah, things are just getting good, to be honest. Yeah. I think this is a 2/5.
Yeah, I think it's a 2/5. I miss the chaff.
I am on the fence about the chaff. Like, I don't see... I mean, if you're going to make cards, then I want to play with them, kind of. So, and it just gives more flexibility and variety in the decks that we're playing. If there's only, you know, if the same number of cards, but half of them are playable, then you have, like, the same sort of streamlined decks that you're playing all the time. I find now that you know, I'll play the same 2 color pairings, but the deck will play very differently than it did the last time because I'm utilizing a different portion of the draft, right? Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it depends what you're valuing. Like, I think it makes the drafting less enjoyable because I think, you know, it was sometimes a challenge to get, you know, you had to draft well to get a playable deck. Now you kind of don't. You can pretty much do anything and have 23 playables.
Kind of. I still find it very, very tough, especially because there's different decks that you can draft within each color because everything is now playable, and there's so many more different, like, synergies and archetypes within color pairings that I find that drafting for me is more difficult. Once I knew what the cards that were good, I could just ignore half the pack and move on. If I had a good card in the pack, great. If I didn't, then, you know what I mean, then move on and just count it as a blank. Run an extra land. But now it's like, well, I actually have decisions to make at every tree for me. Infested Flesh Cutter, 2 mana for an equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+0, and whenever equipped creature attacks, create a 1/1 colorless might with toxic. Woo! Now, this doesn't equip automatically. It's not one of the 4 Miradin abilities, but that still seems pretty dope.
Yeah, anytime you just, like, you get free bodies off, you know, attack triggers, that's pretty great.
Yeah, and +2/+0. Plus, we've seen a ton of little, like, weenie flyers in white already. And, you know, and, like, the little one guy, the 1-drop 1/1 that has toxic, that makes a toxic. So you just put this, you trade up, you keep doing it. Feels pretty good, and you just keep making another idiot.
Yeah, I mean, it's cheap equipment. The equip cost is pricey, but certainly not unreasonable for the effect.
Yeah, I'm enjoying this. This feels like a... It's a little expensive if we're not getting the free equip in the beginning. I'm a little spoiled now. Free body every time you attack, and +2 power is kind of a lot. It's going to make all your little shitters massively trade up. I'm digging it. It's like a 3 for me.
Yeah, I think the card on its face is probably a 3. I kind of want to give it a 2/5 just because it's starting to feel like we might be spoiled for choice on equipment with so many good ones that you might be able to afford to be picky.
Yeah, but this one feels like, of the other white ones, this one feels like one of the better ones. This one, the flying one, it, like, massively outshined the other 2 we saw.
Yeah, I don't know if I have this much better than the flying one.
I was saying the 2 of them, this one and the flying, outshine the others.
Agreed, but like you said earlier, we're only an eye in the first color, and we've already found 3 playable equipment.
And they're all going to be playable, but I think this one's going to be one of the better ones of the whites. Okay, Jawbone Duelist. That's not creepy at all. Okay, 2 mana for a 1/1 with Double Strike and Toxic 1. It's important to note that Double Strike will trigger Toxic twice if you manage to hit them with that. That's pretty cool. It's a Phyrexian Soldier. Okay, there's some soldier stuff going around in Standard, but that's not what we're here to do today. This seems like a fine card to me. 2 mana Double Strike for 1 that can put your opponent on a 5-turn clock. Seems pretty sweet.
Yeah, with all the equipment we're seeing, Double Strikers certainly wear equipment well.
And then there's that 3-drop flyer that gives flying.
Yep.
Ooh! That's going to be spicy.
Just question, if you play this card and you play the Incisor Glider, does he, like, turn and attack your own creature because he wants more teeth?
The teeth in this set is very creepy.
It is, and I don't understand it. I know it's a theme in white in this set, and I don't get why.
Rating-wise, what are you thinking? I mean, I'm still hesitant to put this too high. I still think it's like a 2/5.
Yeah, I think it's a 2/5 that's pretty tailor-made for that Boros equipment deck.
All right. Next we have our next rare. It's a cat cleric named Kemba Ka Enduring. You want to correct me on that?
Nope, you got it.
Sweet. 2 mana for a 2/2 cat cleric. I love mono white cat clerics. I'm so good. So good for this. When it enters, whenever Kemba or another cat enters the battlefield under your control, attach up to 1 target equipment to you control to that creature. Equipped creatures get +1/+0, and for 3 mana you can poop out a cat. So you get free equips onto those cats as you poop them out, which is pretty cute. I don't know how many other cats there are going to be in the set. Probably some, but this also just feels sort of like EDH-y and, constructed for clerics and cats and things like that. But on its own, it's good, and it's tailor-made for the Boros deck. But there will be equipments in every single colors for Miradin mechanic. So, I mean, I could see this going into any color pair, absolutely. And then it really has a huge upside in the Boros deck.
Yeah, I'm taking a quick scan. There's only 1 other cat in white.
It's not super relevant considering it makes its own cats.
Certainly helps, no doubt. But yeah, I mean, I don't even want to call it a bear because it's a cat, but Boros, great in Boros, pretty good in anything. Anything that you could just have as a mana sink that just poops out creatures is always going to be good.
Yeah.
Especially when you're not getting taxed on the front end. You're getting a 2-mana 2/2 with other benefits.
It's making all of your equips cheaper. It's also making your equipments better, and we've already seen that equipments are pretty darn good in this set. And pooping out dudes is a thing I like to do in Limited because, honestly, making 2 extra 2/2s can just be game-winning sometimes. It's becoming that might be a thing of the past here as the power creep goes on, but I still think this is a fantastic card. I'm going to give this a 4. It's going to win the game if left to do its own thing forever. Like, you know what I mean? Pooping out dudes, I think, is really, really strong, and I think that the equipment will be a huge game breaker.
Yeah, I've got it as a 4 as well.
Awesome. Leonen Lightbringer, 3 mana for a 3/2 cat rebel with Ward 2. As long as Leonen Lightbringer is equipped, it gets an additional +1/+1. Pretty simple, straightforward, works really well with Boros. 3 mana, 2/3. Ward 2 I don't really care about because it's got a booty of 2, so that's whatever. I think for me this is a 2, and in Boros it's a 2/5.
Yeah, I like Ward on this card because if you're going to put resources into equipping it and that sort of thing, at least it's making it more expensive for your opponent to get rid of.
Yes, but that's kind of like if in Boros. Like in the average Orzhov deck, I might not even decide to run any equipment, or maybe one, and that just doesn't really like make that super relevant here.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not playing any equipment, this is effectively just, you're right, it's just a 3 mana 3/2.
Yep. Which is why I think it's like a 2 in most decks, and in Boros it'll play up massively.
Yeah, that sounds right.
All right. Mandible, what the? Ew! Mandible Justicar, 2 mana for a 2/1 Phyrexian cleric with lifelink. When another artifact enters the battlefield, this gets +1/+1 till end of turn. God, what is with the creepy teeth in this set? It's driving me crazy. This card is fine. White's going to be pooping out a lot of dudes. It's the go wide color. We might have some lifelink synergies, but we haven't really seen a ton of that in the last few sets. It is a 2/1 for 2, which is not very exciting, but it gets a little scary. What do you think, Yanks?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably only playing this in blue-white with enough artifact synergies. You do have cards that make multiple mites, which are artifacts. So this, including one that we've seen already at instant speed. So that could help this card get better, but that seems like a lot of work for, an underwhelming card.
So the card this reminds me of is there was a card in Capenna that actually really played up really, really high. It was exactly what this is, a 2/1 for 2 that got +1/+1 when a creature enters the battlefield, and it did not have lifelink. And that thing beat me down a lot in very aggressive decks that had a lot of creatures. So in that color pairing, I think it was like Selesnya. But here in like the Boros or the Orzhov, where Orzhov and Selesnya are like the 2 go wide mechanics. One is for pumping and one is for sacrificing.
This gets bigger on artifacts, not creatures.
Oh, I misread. Okay, artifacts specifically. Okay, so I take it back. I was starting to think that this was actually like low-key good, but now it is low-key good in one deck, whereas I was kind of thinking it was low-key good in a lot. But yeah, I guess you're right. This is an Azorius card.
Yeah, either Azorius or for some reason your white deck has a ton of might creating.
Yeah. I wonder what else is going to create a lot of mites. Like, I wonder if the other toxic colors might.
Might.
They might. Okay, what do you think in rating-wise? I'm going to give it a 2.
Yeah, I've got it as a 2.
Okay, I was going to give it a 2/5 because I really liked it because I thought it was creatures, but poop. All right. Mirin Bardchi?
I think it's Bardiche. But I'm not 100% sure on that.
I will go with you on that one. 5 mana for an equipment for Myradin comes into play and equips for free with a 2/2 rebel. Equipped creature gets +2/+1 and has vigilance equipped 4. Ooh, it's a lot of mana. I mean, it makes it 4/3 vigilant for 5. And then it equips for 4? That's a heavy equip.
Yeah, I'm probably staying away from this unless I'm playing like Kemba or the other things that care about equipped things where just that first free equip is worth it.
Agreed. I think 5 mana is a little bit of a commitment for me. If I've got open 5 slots, which some sets have some open 5 slots, and I'm okay to play some things like this, but for the most part, I think I'm looking elsewhere for my 5s.
Yeah, I think this is probably a 2. It's not the worst thing to put in your deck. There'll be the occasional deck where it plays up.
I agree. 2 it is. I'm going to let you take the Battlestar Galactica Angel God.
Mondrak Glory Dominus, 2 white for a 4/4 legendary Phyrexian horror. If one or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many of those tokens are created instead. You can pay 1 and 2 Phyrexian white mana and sacrifice 2 other artifacts and or creatures. Put an indestructible counter on Mondrak Glory Dominus. So this whole cycle, we talked about in the intro video, the Dominus cycle, they all have this second ability with double Phyrexian and some amount of colorless and some other cost to give themselves an indestructible counter. And then, they all have some form of other static ability.
This card seems sweet with all the might tokens and silliness. Like, tokens are pretty relevant and limited these days. I don't think this will be hard to trigger something on. And it's a 4/4 for 4 in white. I'm all for it.
Yep, it also works with 4 Myradin. You get a second red. You get a second token.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, there's a lot going on here. This is sweet. I think this is. I can't wait to see how much exile effects are in the set, because sacrificing 2 other artifacts and or creatures is quite a hefty cost on this. So I just can't wait to find out how often people just get absolutely smashed in this, like 3 for 1ing themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
In a lot of decks, this won't be great. In the right deck, it will always be decent, but in the right deck, it will be insane. So I'm going to go ahead and just say this is a 4. In a lot of decks, it's going to play like a 3/5, but I think that the synergies are here.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a 4 as well. It's just the ability is just a little too conditional for it to be, and needing help for it to be higher up than that.
Yeah, it doesn't fulfill its own thing. It doesn't poop out its own cats.
Yes.
All right, Norns Wellspring, 2 mana for an artifact that says whenever a creature you control dies, scry 1 and put an oil counter on the Wellspring. You could pay 1, tap, remove 2 oil counters from it, and draw a card.
So this is 2 mana, do nothing. And maybe in a couple turns.
Yeah, 2 mana, do nothing. Scry 2 or 3 over time, and then draw a card or 2 over time. For a rare, this is really sad. And it's also not in the oil counter proliferating colors. So, like, maybe Azorius wants this if you've got some cool proliferate triggers. But, like, also that's the color. So blue proliferates and oils. So, like, maybe that's the home for this if you have a corner case that wants it. But the average deck, I do not think wants this at all.
Yeah, I think this is pretty underwhelming. Maybe if it turns out this format gets like really wide, just in general, and you get to points where you can play this early, and you get a lot of things trading off. Okay, but we don't know that yet, and I don't expect it to be that, especially when some of the tokens that are made can't block like the mites.
This is the wide format. The wide color. So maybe the plan is you make a bunch of dudes, you send them in, half of them die, you get in some chip damage, you make a bunch of oil counters, you draw more. So Boros kind of keeping its foot on the gas. But
yeah, it could help you refill.
That said, I'm still not interested unless I have oil and proliferate in my deck and want artifacts. So I'm gonna go on a limb here and say this is a 1, and it's probably a 2 in exactly Azorius and nothing else.
I'm a little higher on that because I do think, unless you draw this really late, the 4 of this card is it probably does at least cycle with Scry 2 over time, which isn't unplayable, but yeah, it's not good.
That's a long time and a lot of time invested for a card. Yeah, I'm not into doing that in most decks. But I think there's enough synergy with Azorius wanting artifacts, Azorius having proliferate, and Azorius being able to manipulate oil counters. I'm gonna bank that that's where we're gonna want this. So I'm 1 or a 2. What is your rating for this?
I think it's a 2. I think I just have it as a straight 2, and yeah, there are certain decks that'll be better than that in.
Okay, sounds good. The Orthodoxy Enforcer, 4 mana for a 2/4 with vigilance, and gets a +2/+0 as long as you control 2 or more artifacts, which I don't think will be hard with mites no matter what color pairing you're in, right? And all the good equipment that we've been seeing, this seems pretty reasonable. I mean, it's nothing exciting, don't get me wrong, but like the likelihood of this being a 4/4 with vigilant is solid.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how big that thing is, given how big the mites were in that other card.
True.
If they're all to scale, this is pretty frighteningly large.
Yeah, but because the mites are so small here, huh? I don't think this is going to take a ton of synergy for you to make this happen. And a 4 mana 4/4 with vigilant in white, not even in green, I'm all for that. I think this is going to be close to a 3.
Yeah, it's probably a 3, and you'll know when you don't want it. Because if this is just a 2/4 vigilance, you probably don't want to play it.
Absolutely. 100% agree. If you've got no other assistance from your other colors, things like that, but hopefully you do. Ossification, 2 mana for an aura that enchants a basic land. When it enters the battlefield, exile target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls until this leaves the battlefield. Okay, so just like our regular O-ring, it sort of chained to the rocks but doesn't need the red. So yeah, this seems like great removal. This is white's 4.
Yep, and this is white's 4. It's, a lot of times the phrase or planeswalker is kind of trinket text and limited, but there are planeswalkers at rare, not just mythic. So
there are a lot
more.
A lot more planeswalkers in this set. Yes, there is. Holy smokes. We're gonna want to be using that. All right, we've got one of our another showcase mythic, the Phyrexian Vindicator. White for a Phyrexian horror, 5/5 flyer that says if damage would be dealt to Phyrexian Vindicator, prevent that damage. When damage is prevented this way, Phyrexian Vindicator deals that much damage to any target. Gross. I'm so glad this is going to be hard to cast in limited. That is a lot of text that does some scary crap.
Yeah, I mean, it's an obvious callback to Phyrexian Obliterator, which is also in this set, the black version. Not entirely sure which one is better. This one is probably more deadly to you, or more deadly to your opponent, but the other one is more deadly to their board. So, yeah, I don't know, but either way, very happy this is white, and hard to cast.
Yeah. If this was 3 white, I think I'd lose it.
Yeah, if they just made, Sarah Angel into this.
Yeah. I would be done. But that said, we're still going to lose to this card quite frequently, I am sure. I'm hoping there's some exile cards because Burn's not going to do it. And I will say, Achievement Unlocked, if there is a red burn spell that hits creatures but not opponents, and then you burn your own Phyrexian Vindicator to redirect it to their face, that's a bingo card. Send me a screenshot. I will send you an arena code because that is dope. I hope I get to do something like that in Limited this year.
To play this in, I don't know what the hell format I would be in, I guess Modern with Blasphemous Act. Just play multiple of these and just hit everything for 13 and blow your opponent up.
Mm-hmm. All right. Planar.
What are we giving that card?
5? Because it protects itself. Half the removal is just voided here.
Yeah, I mean it's still vulnerable to white removal, black removal, and probably blue removal, assuming there is some.
So usually we only give 5s to things that impact the board or protect itself in some way, like comas, that kind of stuff, where it's like it's really tricky to deal with. I agree this one's not quite as slippery as those, but it certainly adds to the slipperiness of this bomb and increases the likelihood that it's going to stick on the board. So I'm willing to just say this is a 5. If you could go lower if you want, but I'm going to lose to this shit.
Well, yeah, I mean, definitely going to lose to the card. Yeah, it's probably a 5. I'm trying to just, like, parse in my head. Like, I almost treat this it's not a 4-mana spell. It's like a 6 or 7-mana spell, given the color requirements. But it's still, yeah, it's probably a 5, but...
It's going to depend on how much, like, removal hits this.
Yeah.
I'm assuming we're going to fade, like, I don't know, at least 40% of the removal spells in the format, and that is a happy enough point for me, I think.
I mean, yeah, like, Gruul decks are just going to go cry in the corner. But...
It's just gonna have like a bunch of like lava coils and just like cry.
I mean, fight spells, like even bites don't do anything. Like those decks are gonna be very sad.
And it's flying. It's just like it's everything. It's just yeah.
Although it'll be interesting to see if there's anything in red that's like, you know, a burn spell that says damage can't be prevented.
Yeah. I think that'll be pretty key. If there is, though, I doubt it would be the 5 damage spell. But I mean, you know,
probably not.
They tend to put those things into account based on what's going on in the set. So maybe they'll surprise us and maybe they will be there. And then we can retroactively go back and give this thing like a 4 because it actually doesn't do that much like on its own. It's like it's not that exciting if it's easily removed, right?
Yeah, if you're playing a turn 8 5/5 flyer, yeah, it's scary, but it's still just a 5/5 flyer, which there are other things you can be doing on turn 8 that are better.
And the interesting thing, too, says when damage is prevented this way.
Yep.
So if it can't be prevented, it doesn't even get to redirect in 2-for-1 anyway. It's just worse if that's the case. So we'll see if we have anything like that.
Yeah, I feel that's the other bucket list moment in the set is just going like turn 1 planes, turn 2 planes, turn 3 planes, turn 4 planes, Vindicator.
Yeah. Planar Disruption, 2 mana for an aura. Artifact, creature, or planeswalker, a permanent can't attack or block, and its activated abilities can't be activated. Okay, so it's just like a little, like, you know, pacifism-y thing for 2 mana. It's getting good. Sure, I think this is great. 3.5. We've seen quite a few flickers already in white. So, and there's a sack mechanic in the set, so don't want to give it too high, but I think it's a 3.5.
Yeah, I think it's a 3/5.
Great. Moving us along, we are over an hour. Plated Onslaught, more human creepy teeth, 5 mana for an instant affinity for artifacts. Glad to see it. Creatures you control get +2/+1 till end of turn. So, possibly a 2 mana pump here? With a bunch of mites? Holy crap, this is actually going to be pretty sweet.
Yeah, with mites, this is good. Yeah. Outside of mites or some blue-white decks, I don't think you're going to want it in some of the other ones, but it does look like there are enough mites.
Agreed. A lot of mites, and also then you just like regular, you know, artifacts and regular equipments, and Azorius is going to have a ton of flyers that are like random dinky artifacts that are just going to make this like just, you know, strangely good. And if you're very likely to get 1 mana like reduced off this, it's fine. And then it just gets significantly better from there. So I'm probably going to play this a lot. Not like I love the card, but it's like a 2 that's just going to make the cut in most things as my 1 combat trick.
Yeah, I won't because I only have like 4 creatures in my decks. But
yeah, if you're only playing 4 creatures, I can see how you don't want to run that. What is your rating, though? Let's pretend you had creatures in your deck just once. Just for...
I have it as like a 2.
Okay, so we're about the same port. Porcelain Zealot, 4 mana for a 2/3. Phyrexian Soldier. At the beginning of combat on your turn, target creature you control gets +1/+1 till end of turn. If that creature has Toxic, it instead gets +2/+2. So it turns all your little mites into 3/3s. That's so cute. 1 at a time, but I mean, still.
Yeah.
It doesn't say other either, so it's a 4 mana that attacks as a 3/4.
3/4, yeah.
Which is fine. that right there is like a 2 base. The flexibility, I'm okay to like call it a 3/4 because you have the flexibility to also just put it on your flyer. Yeah, I think this is fine.
I think I've got this as like a 2, not because it's good, but just because everything else is better.
Exactly. So it's good enough for me to want to give it a 2/5 just because I feel like that flexibility and the mites getting through and just general toxic, like the little flyer that was toxic. We had the Windrake and all the mites. Like that feels strong to me, but everything feels strong. So like something has to be a 2 and I think this is it. I agree with that. Yeah. Okay. I will let you take this one.
Resistance Reunited, 1 and a white for an instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Equipped creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn.
So Boros card.
Yeah, it seems like 2 mana for 2/2 at instant speed and white is what we're getting. Definitely like the toxic one better.
By a lot.
Yeah, and not close. Again, 4 different decks, right? This is, as you said, better in Boros. But I think the other one's probably better in every other white combination.
Yeah, I agree with that. Definitely a tough one to want to be playing in outside of Boros. And I think the toxic one is just going to be better in literal everything. Even if you just have like a couple incidental little mites, I'm happy to play a 2/2 that has a chance to draw me a card some fraction of the game, some fraction of my games. But this one's just not doing that. And the likelihood of the equipped creature needing to be indestructible in addition to the pump, whatever. You have obviously some blowout options there. If you like get in some big swings with multiple creatures who are equipped, great, but not likely. I think this is like a 1/5.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. Sinew Dancer, 1 mana, 1/1. 4 mana, you can tap a creature. Corrupted, you can tap target creature. Activate. Wait. Pay 4. Okay, so it just costs 3 less. I was like, wait, this is the same thing. Activate only if an opponent has 3 or more poison counters. I was confused. I was like, why does this say the same thing twice? Great. So it's a little tapping dork with corrupted bonus. Phyrexian Soldier.
I mean, 1 mana tappers that can be activated at instant speed are great.
Yeah.
But 4 mana ones are useless.
Yeah.
So
you have to be able to trigger corrupted with this.
The good thing is generally you want the tapping ability later in the game. You tend to have mana to spare, and that's when you want to tap down big things that they have. Mm-hmm. So assuming you can reliably get to corrupted like in the mid to late game, then this is probably like a 2/5. If you can't, it just goes in the trash.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just so not flexible. I wish it did something else. I wish it had flying, or it was a 1/2 so it could block mites, or just something else. But like, you have to have corrupted or this is literally in the trash. I don't like it. I think it's like a 1/5.
Yeah, I think that's probably what it averages out to. But if you're playing Orzhov, I'll probably take this all the time.
I agree. There's going to be 1 or 2 decks that will be happy to play this, but I think most decks are going to sit out. I don't think I'll be able to get corrupted as consistently as I need for this to be something I'm ever going to want to draw.
Yeah, the one thing I hadn't really thought about with corrupted until now is that we're seeing a ton of toxic, right? And that's makes it feel like corrupted should be easy to get, but that's only going to be true if you're the aggressor. Even if you have toxic creatures but you're behind, it's going to be hard to get them to those poison counters without sacrificing your own board state.
Absolutely.
So,
and then you're just tapping creatures down to stay alive, and what good is that?
Yeah, so even if you have the critical mass of toxic to get there, you have to be the aggressor really to get there. Or at least have enough defenses where maybe you can get through with the flying toxic guy or something.
Yeah, there's a couple of like evasion ones. That's cool. Or ones that have also death touch. Or if you have the uncommon that lets you give death touch in addition to toxic, then we're talking, right? But like the average deck is just not going to have that much synergy.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is a 1/5 for me. I'm going to put this in 1 or 2 decks that are very specific and none others.
Yeah, I think it's a 1/5, but it'll come around late when you want it, and you'll be pretty happy to pick it up late in those decks.
All right, well, this one is a little cute, actually. Like, it's got the creepy teeth, but it's also a little cute. Look at his little babies. Skrelv's Hive, 2 mana for an enchantment at the beginning of your upkeep. You lose 1 life and create a 1/1 Phyrexian Might that can't block in Toxic. Corrupted, as long as an opponent has 3 or more, you control the creatures you control with Toxic have lifelink. That's what that says. Okay, so it's like a little disgusting Bitter Blossom. Yeah.
Yes. much worse Bitter Blossom.
Yeah, it's like kind of cute though. Look at his little babies. And you've got like, the affinity for Artifact Pump. You've got, flyers that have power based on artifacts. Like, I feel like I agree it's much worse, but I feel like I'm probably running this card.
Yeah, I think this card is certainly playable. It's just not like an immediate must remove because
absolutely
you can afford people getting a lot of times a lot of board states. You're having a handful of 1/1 ground creatures.
And if you're ahead and they play this, you just keep attacking. They can't even block.
Yeah.
So I think it's like 2/5.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
I'm probably not cutting it, but I'm not like, first pickable. I'm probably taking premium removal over it most of the time, to be honest.
Definitely.
Ew, it's the creepy little thing from the last thing eating something's finger. Ugh. Skrelv Defector Might.
It needs to eat to have its babies.
That's true. Defector Might is a 1 mana Phyrexian Might. It's a 1/1 with Toxic 1. It can't block, so it's regular Might stats there. And for 1 or Phyrexia, 1 Phyrexian mana, choose a color. Another target creature you control gains Toxic and Hexproof from that color until end of turn. It can't be blocked by creatures of that color this turn. Holy shit, that's a good line of text at the end there. Huh.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good card.
It's like a good boy that doesn't have to die.
Yes. It just makes you die by paying life over and over again.
You can pay the white. I'm okay to pay a white forever here. Sure. Like, that's a solid rate. Like, the Phyrexian mana is just a bonus.
Sure.
I don't even have to keep the mana open, but, like, if I did, I'm still all gung-ho for this card. This is awesome. I'm playing this in every card. I think this is fantastic. It does say another creature, so they remove this first, and then they kill that. But, like, if you're spending removal on my 1-drop, then hell yeah, let's go. I mean, maybe I'm just super high out on this card. I don't know. It's like 4? I love it.
Oh, yeah, you're way higher than me.
This card seems dope. It gets in things. It makes infinite blockers. You can do everything.
It sometimes gets in things. If I have a black creature and a green creature, it does not get in things.
What?
Right? You can only pick one color. So if I have 2 different colors of creatures on the board, it no longer gets anything in.
Yes, but like, there's situations where it's going to do that. It's going to be situations where you can never attack me ever again without it just being boinked by some idiot. My 1/4 cleric will just be there forever.
What do you mean, boinked by some idiot?
It gains Toxic and Hexproof. Oh, it just can't be blocked. For some reason, I was thinking it was protection.
Not protection, yeah.
It's not quite protection. It does most of the things protection does, but it doesn't actually. Okay, so you can't boink block, but it's still very good. Well, I'll go 3/5 with no blocking here, but this still seems awesome.
Yeah, I think I have it as a 3. So yeah.
I thought you could block. I thought it was just like protection for 1 forever. And I was like, what is wrong with you? This is amazing.
Yeah.
A little bit worse. Swooping Lookout. It's that thing that we saw earlier, but with more wings. 1 mana.
It merged into a transformer.
Yeah. Zordon called.
Yes.
1 mana for a 1/2 flying with vigilance. It's a Phyrexian construct artifact creature. Good in some decks. Fine-ish. It is getting to the point where it has enough things on it that I'm kind of happy. It's going to keep the mites at bay. We've seen multiple 1/1s for 1. We've seen a 3/1. We've seen lots of mites. So I think this is getting to the point where it's a 1-drop I'm willing to play.
Yeah, I think this card is fine. Well, this card would be great against, but we haven't seen yet, are like 1/1 spirit tokens or something like that.
Yeah, I think the mites are kind of what that is. And so you're going to get in the little boinky damage, you're going to trigger your artifacts, and you're also just going to be resistant to mites, which is good.
Yeah, I was about like in a set where you had flying tokens, this would be even particularly better. But it is still good being able to blank mites. Yeah, this card's fine. Not exciting, but fine.
2.
Yep.
I will probably play one of these in most white decks and be pretty happy about it. I think it's going to be better than just like a lot of generic-y bears. I don't know why I said whales.
Yes, those generic whales.
I don't know why I said whales. It's getting late. I'm getting loopy. Vanish into Eternity, 3 mana for an instant that says this spell costs 3 less to cast, 3 more to cast if it targets a creature. Exile target non-land permanent. Our first exile ability for that idiot Phyrexian Praetor. Hallelujah. Okay, so it's cheap if it targets like equipments or like auras, like your like pacifisms, things like that. But it's going to be quite hefty. Exile a creature for the very expensive cost of 6 mana. Usually in white we see a 4 and a colorless, or 4 colorless and a white for exile target creature, like non-land permanent. So it's a little on the heavy side, but it gives you the discounted rate when you're not targeting it, and that's kind of key too. So that washes for me. This feels fine. It's also instant speed.
Yeah, a little more expensive than we usually want to pay, but especially with the added increase of planeswalkers in this set, you're in a Phyrexian set, so there's going to probably be some artifacts, non-creature ones you want to deal with. It balances a little bit that way.
Yeah, there's a lot more planeswalkers will be a lot more relevant, and usually, like I said, it's 5 mana for destroy target non-land permanent. This, a lot of times you are going to be paying 3, so you're going to get a nice discount there.
Yep.
All right. Rating-wise, is this premium enough to be a 4? I think 6 is awfully high for me to kill a creature, so I'm thinking 3/5.
Yeah, it's limited. You still want to kill creatures more than anything else, so I've got this as a 3/5. But having the built-in, like, free answer to enchantments and stuff like that, not having to spend a card in your deck on that is nice as well.
Free answer. Oh, because it also, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, you don't have to, like, it fills the role of a disenchant or something like that.
Gotcha. I'm comparing it, I can't really think of what it was, but we definitely had one not that long ago that was 4 and a colorless, destroy, like, exile target non-land permanent. I can't remember what it was, but it was in white.
I think it was in War of the Spark, because it hit all the planeswalkers.
Maybe. I thought it was a little bit more recent than that, but I'd have to look.
Oh, there might have been multiple ones, too.
Yeah. I think it was in one of the Midnight Hunts? No, whatever. It's irrelevant. All right, let's go ahead and look at Veil of Assimilation. 2 mana for an artifact. When Veil or another artifact enters the battlefield under your control, target creature you control gets +1/+1 and gains vigilance until end of turn. It kind of doesn't do a lot.
Yeah, this card feels pretty terrible.
Yeah, I'm not into this. Even if I really want artifacts on the board, maybe if I'm pooping out a lot of mites and have a ton of cards that like poop mites out every turn. Like,
yeah, if I had recurring, maybe with Skrell's Hive and I get it every turn, but I still don't think I want to spend a card on giving something one thing +1/+1 each turn.
Yeah.
Like, and occasionally 2. Like,
this feels like a 1 and like oh crap, I don't have enough playables, Azorius card.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, cool. Moving on, we have White Sun's Twilight, X white for a sorcery. You gain X life. You create X 1/1 colorless mite artifacts that cannot block with Toxic 1. If 5 is more, destroy all other creatures. So 7 mana for a board clear that leaves you with 5 mites.
And gains 5 life.
That's a little expensive.
Yeah,
but
it's pricey, but you can, I was going to say play it earlier to stabilize, but not really because the things can't block.
Because they can't block. And the problem is if you're playing it, like, if you're paying 5 mana, is 5 mana good for gain 3 life and make 3 mites? No.
No, maybe it might be in some situations in blue-white for the artifacts or something, but not
That
likely.
still seems pretty underwhelming. I'd rather have
Agreed.
the other, like, flexible might spell that was a common, right?
Yes.
That made 2 mites or removed a creature. That just seems way better. This is
no argument there. This
very
is really
not exciting.
I mean, this is really 7 mana.
Agreed.
Spell.
Otherwise, it's just not worth playing. Like, yeah, if you don't need the board clear, it's nice to have an alternate use, but it's a real shitty rate. So can you get to 7 mana for a board clear? Do you want a 7 mana board clear, I think is the question here. And most decks, I'm going to say no.
See, I'm going to say yes. I'm not Boros, but otherwise I'm going to think I say yes, because unlike traditional board clears, you don't have the disadvantage of letting them get on the board first. You're already on the board. And while it's only 5/1/1s, potentially 3 unblocked 1/1 toxic creatures could cause problems if they can even play 2 things next turn.
Yeah, but 7 mana is a lot.
Yeah.
And we've been getting a lot of good board clears at 5 mana, and sometimes these formats seem pretty quick. I'm worried that 7 mana is just going to be too late. I agree there's some upside in that, like, you don't have to use it as a board clear. You can use it for 3 mites. That's cool. Win more a card if you're already ahead. It does put you on the board first, which is also cool. But again, 7 mana. Like, if you need the board clear, chances are a good percentage of the time this is just going to be too little too late.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We talked earlier about how it's not that hard to get to 6 in Limited. It's not that much harder to get to 7.
If the games are going long, but usually when you need a board clear, the game's not going to go long.
Well, I think agreed with the traditional board clear, but you're okay playing this on a stalled board where it's kind of an even trade.
Yeah, this is a better board clear on a stalled board, absolutely.
Yeah.
But as an oh shit button, I think it is significantly worse.
Yeah. I'd rather have Supreme Verdict or something I could play for 4 or 5, but
yeah. I'm okay with it. I don't think it's great. I think this is like... I don't know. I think it's like a 2 or a 2/5.
We'll see. I've got this way higher. I think it's like a 3/5.
Okay. I mean, I will come around like week 1 or 2 in the set if the set seems like it's going slowly and we're hitting 7 mana on the regular. But I just, for now, I think that this format's going to be a little too quick for this.
It very well might be, and yeah, there are certainly formats where this would be completely unplayable, like Amonkhet, for example.
Every set we tend to have like 3-ish cards where we're apart like that, and this will be the first one. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Zealot's Conviction, 1 mana for an aura, flash, enchant creature. It gets +1/+1 if you have corrupted. It also gets an additional +1/+0 and first strike.
Yeah, that's my exact That's exactly how I feel about this card.
I think this is a borderline playable in just about any deck. I love flash auras that double as combat tricks that leave a lasting effect. +1/+1 is a little on the low side for that, but it is 1 mana only. But this deck has the really cool added bonus is if you have a consistent corrupted deck, then it becomes pretty solid. +2/+1 and first strike for a 1 mana instant speed that stays. I think that's good. It's going to depend on whether or not you have corrupted, I think, to play this card.
Yeah, a lot of these corrupted cards are feeling like very pass-fail to me, where I just don't want them at all if I can't get there, as opposed to like, we talked about, I think, in the AFR where some of the dice roll cards were like good or better. These seem like bad. These seem just like bad or good.
So I didn't feel like that for the first 2, but I have for the first 2, like all except for the last 2. Like the Tapper and this one have felt like the only 2 that didn't feel like they cut it on their own. Like I felt like for the most of the other ones, they were like good enough to where just random like synergies that you will get in every single white deck will be good enough for as long as it will trigger sometimes. I'm fine with it. These ones really do need the ability. They are very pass-fail, I think. Yeah, so I've been 50-50 on that.
Like, I'm scanning through it. I think the only corrupted card I'm fine with on its own was the first one, the Angel.
Yeah. I think the only two that I was just like, I think the Angel is on the high end of that scale. But I think this one and the Tapper are the only two I'm absolutely not fine with.
Yeah, that's fair. The Bird is like
fine on its own, right?
Okay and good.
Exactly.
But not. Yeah, that one's kind of in the middle. The last two have been bad though.
And this, yeah, exactly. So this is going to be more of a split rating. I'm not interested. And then I am actively interested if my deck is like trying to corrupt. If my deck has 3 of those birds, I'm playing this. Like, absolutely bet. But this is not something I'm going to be interested in the average deck.
Agreed.
I'm going to give it a 1-5.
Yeah, 1-5 sounds right.
All right, that's the end of white, guys. Yanks, what do you think so far?
It's interesting. There's the artifact synergy stuff doesn't feel great, but there are a lot of artifacts, so maybe some of the synergy stuff we'll see in blue. There's a decent amount of. There's a lot of toxic. There's a lot of mites.
A lot of teeth.
Yeah, a whole lot of teeth.
All right, guys, leave us a comment. Let me know down below in the comment section what you guys think of white. If you guys missed the introduction video, please go on over and check it out. It's already up on the YouTube channel for you guys. And don't forget to check out the rest of the videos because they'll be coming out all week as well. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.